Starting today, my sister and her husband were moving in with us. Any strangers could just find somewhere else to go. But suddenly John, my brother-in-law, barged into our house, followed by my sister's husband. Why should I leave this house? We can't live together as a married couple anymore, John declared abruptly. What? My sister's husband exclaimed. He's been treating me like a maid all this time. I've been a victim of your emotional abuse. It's awful. He gestured dramatically, as if wiping away tears that weren't there, clearly upset. I can't take it anymore. I'm divorcing you. And I expect my share of the property, starting with this house. I endured that life for 2 years, so I have every right to it, don't I? That's right. And who's going to pay the $3,300 living expenses? John chimed in. The next day, as I settled into a luxurious $2 million facility, my phone blew up with hysterical calls from my ex-husband and his sister. My name is Anna Smith, and I recently turned 40. I work as a day trader and investor dealing in currencies and stocks. Thanks to this job, I've managed to build up a decent amount of wealth. Alongside my career, I live with a congenital illness that, while not life-threatening, requires me to be cautious. Doctors have advised me against overexertion and cautioned about the risks associated with childbirth, prompting me to consider not having children. My parents never shielded me from this reality. They taught me to confront my illness head-on and live life with determination. My father, who worked at a brokerage firm, imparted his knowledge of stocks to me, which eventually became my livelihood. My husband, John, is 30 years old minus 10 years my junior, and we've been married for 2 years. We first met when John started working as a waiter at my favorite restaurant. Initially, he was just a charming new face among the staff, but somehow he won me over, and our relationship evolved from acquaintances to lovers. Marriage came naturally soon after. I thought you wouldn't want this. After all, I can't have children, John confessed in his 20s. When I proposed and you refused, I thought it was because of that. But then I realized, Anna, I want a life with you. If I wanted children, I would have chosen differently from the beginning. Don't you trust me? His words moved me deeply, and I accepted his proposal with tears of joy. Shortly after our wedding, John made a heartfelt declaration. I'll take care of everything at home. While I don't dislike my job as a waiter, wouldn't it be easier for you if I handle things this way? Plus, I'm a good cook. John indeed possessed a knack for cooking, stemming from a genuine interest in food that led him to work in the industry. While not directly in the kitchen, he absorbed knowledge by observation. This common ground sparked our initial conversations. My brother, who also worked in restaurants, mentioned John's aspiration to open his own place, which intrigued him, leading to many engaging discussions between us. During those talks, John expressed his dream of owning a restaurant someday, his eyes shining with enthusiasm as he urged me to share more stories. Witnessing his passion was endearing. However, when he later proposed to become a stay-at-home husband, I voiced my concern. What about your dream? Do you think being a stay-at-home husband means I can't pursue my own business? That's outdated thinking. Besides, wouldn't it be lonely if we were apart? I want to spend as much time with you as possible, he responded warmly. His words melted my resistance, and I agreed to his proposal, touched by his devotion. Initially, our arrangement worked smoothly. Me focused on my career while John managed household chores. But over time, John's commitment waned. Our once pristine living room, imbued with newlywed charm, gradually cluttered with comic books and video games. Nights stretched into dawn as he immersed himself in gaming sessions on the oversized TV. Initially, I didn't think much of it. It was just occasional gaming. But it escalated quickly. Soon, John had completely flipped his day-night schedule. John, this has been going too far lately, I confronted him. Yeah, sorry. I'm really into this game right now. Can you let it slide until I finish it, please? He pleaded, and reluctantly, I agreed to let him finish that game. Yet before long, he was engrossed in a new one. When we first married, the house was immaculate. John took such pride in keeping it cozy and clean as a stay-at-home husband. What happened? I tolerated it for a few months, but finally I couldn't ignore it any longer. John, we need to talk, I said firmly. Huh? About what? He replied. I married an adult man, but lately it feels like I'm dealing with a child who won't do their homework until they finish playing games. We're supposed to be partners, equals. You chose to be a stay-at-home husband, so I need you to honor that commitment. I'm not saying you can't have fun. Just prioritize your responsibilities first. I laid out my frustrations and John hesitated before responding. I understand. I'm sorry for slacking off. I'll only play games after I finish my chores, I promise. True to his word, John resumed his duties as a diligent stay-at-home husband. However, something had changed. Despite his efforts, he seemed perpetually discontented. In the beginning, John cooked with joy and took pride in maintaining a spotless house. But gradually, he rushed through his tasks and retreated to his room. Instead of gaming in the living room or reading comics on the sofa, he spent more time playing online games alone in his own space. He started saying things like, "Sorry, I have a dungeon raid tonight. Can you eat by yourself? Just leave the dishes, I'll wash them later." I would watch him walk away to his room while I ate dinner alone. No matter how delicious the meal, eating alone made it less enjoyable. Yet since he fulfilled his housework duties as promised, I felt I couldn't complain. It wasn't just dinner. "I have a guild battle tonight. Not sure when I'll be back. Go to bed without me." He wouldn't come back to the bedroom. It was like this almost every night. During the day, he would often go out alone. When questioned about his whereabouts, his response was always a vague shopping, returning only by evening. Despite preparing my meals and ensuring the chores were done, it felt like a bitter irony. He took care of everything: cleaning, laundry, cooking. So I had no grounds to protest. But this wasn't the family life I envisioned. It felt like living with a silent housekeeper. We barely exchanged words anymore. I ate my solitary, cold meals, changed into laundered clothes, and sat in the immaculate house, overwhelmed by loneliness. In those moments, I sometimes thought that being alone might be less lonely. Looking at John's closed bedroom door, tears would quietly stream down my face from the ache in my heart. Yet I held on to hope that things would improve, believing we could return to normalcy. And so, I endured in silence. Then, after enduring this lifestyle for about a year, John suddenly dropped a bombshell. "Starting today, my sister and her husband are moving in with us. Any strangers can find somewhere else to go." Suddenly, John and his brother-in-law barged into our house, exclaiming, I couldn't believe it. I distinctly remember when John got married and moved in here, his sister and her husband moved into an apartment. What changed? "Wait, you're moving out and going back to the old apartment?" I blurted out in confusion, only to have all three of them exchange glances and burst into laughter. "No, no," John finally said amidst their amusement. "I'm staying here with my sister and her husband. You're the one who's moving out." I couldn't understand it at all. "Why do I have to leave this house?" I asked, bewildered. "Because we can no longer live together as a married couple," John claimed. "You've treated me like a maid all this time. It's emotional abuse." "That's awful," my sister-in-law exaggerated, pretending to wipe away non-existent tears. "But I can't take it anymore. I'm divorcing you. I'll be taking the property division first. This house, I endured that life for 2 years. So I have every right to it, don't I?" That's right, John kept insisting, while his sister cheered him on. Meanwhile, her husband stood by with a smirk. "Ah, I see now. I begin to understand the situation. John must have planned this all along. He sweet-talked me into marriage with the intention of divorcing me when it suited him. Just as he mentioned earlier, he aimed to secure various assets. Knowing I couldn't have children and not being conventionally attractive, I felt my personality was average at best. I never thought any man would want to marry me, so I had planned to live independently, focusing on my career and hobbies. I had supportive friends and a good relationship with my parents and brother. After retiring, my parents relocated to my father's hometown, where my brother and his wife also settled. With experience in the restaurant industry, my brother eventually started his own small restaurant. They chose to live together on a spacious property, building a separate house where they coexisted harmoniously. I was born and raised in this town, close to the city, so visiting my parents, brother, sister-in-law, and my 2 nephews wasn't just a trip down memory lane, it was a cherished time spent with loved ones. I never felt lonely, so marrying a man 10 years younger came as a surprise, even to myself. Looking back now, I realize I was deceived. Listening to John and his sister, I couldn't help but laugh at my own naivety. Deep down, I had sensed something like this might happen. John had approached me so suddenly and became so deeply involved. It all seemed too perfect, like a scripted tale. Initially cautious, I couldn't resist his affectionate charm. My mind raced. How could I turn the tables? How could I show them the consequence of their actions? As a day trader, reading situations and navigating towards positive outcomes was my forte. I've overcome challenges my entire life. I could certainly handle this. No, I would handle it. While lost in thought, John and his sister continued to hurl insults at me. Why are you so quiet? Hurry up and pack your things. Get ready to leave. Sure, I'll start packing, I replied calmly. Fine, I'm leaving. I began to pack only my personal belongings, a change of clothes, my work laptop, and a few essential items. Here, fill this out. John handed me a piece of paper. It was the divorce papers I had anticipated. His sister and her husband's names were already filled in as witnesses. I'll file the divorce papers. I'll contact you if I need anything else. With mocking smiles, John and the others watched as I left my own condo with my belongings. I had a place in mind to go. For now, I'd head there and gather my thoughts. I knew they'd have more to say soon, and I would deal with it then. I drove out of the condo's parking lot and made my way to my destination. Arriving there, I had a peaceful night's sleep and woke up feeling refreshed. I slept in longer than usual and enjoyed a leisurely brunch. The food was as delicious as I remember from my last visit over 2 years ago. First, I messaged John on WhatsApp, informing him of my current location and stating that my lawyer would handle everything moving forward. The phone rang almost immediately, quicker than I expected. What the hell is going on? I heard John's sister shout in the background, though her words were unclear. What do you mean? Don't pretend you don't know. Where the hell are you? John demanded. So, that's what got his attention. I'm here because I was forced out. Is that a problem? I responded calmly. That's not what I meant. John's frustration was palpable in his voice. That's a high-end resort, a members-only hotel. Why are you there? John's voice betrayed a mix of surprise and disbelief. Because I'm a member here, I replied calmly. You never told me that, John exclaimed. Of course not, because I never mentioned it, I responded matter-of-factly. As I spoke, I realized just how exclusive this place was. It wasn't just a hotel, but a luxury resort offering lifetime care services, essentially a high-end retirement community complete with its own hospital. Access required a minimum investment of $2 million, which had made headlines in the media. That explained why John recognized the name and called me immediately after checking. Why are you a member of a place like that? John questioned, still trying to comprehend. Because I invested in the right to be here, I explained. On the other end of the line, John muttered some incomprehensible noises, clearly struggling to grasp the situation. Someone mentioned I should go somewhere else, right? So, I decided to live here. If you want to stay in the house, go ahead. Just make sure to pay the $3,300 monthly rent, I responded calmly. What? But that's your house. What do you mean, rent? John sounded confused. I've decided to sell it. It's something I've been considering for a while, and I won't be living there anymore, I explained calmly. I never planned on getting married and bought this place to secure my future without burdening anyone in my old age. I already owned the condo I lived in until yesterday, but when the opportunity arose to secure this spot, I took it. This location is a bit remote for full-time retirement right now, so we've kept it as a vacation home. It's been my secret retreat, known only to my accountant and lawyer. Give me that place too, John suddenly interjected while I was lost in thought. I should be entitled to half of that, he added conveniently. His audacity astonished me. Who in their right mind would agree to such a demand? I have no intention of giving it to you. From now on, please contact me through my lawyer. You have their contact info, right? I calmly responded before hanging up and turning off my phone. Now, I think I'll go to the spa and unwind. Not just from yesterday's stress, but from the past 2 years, I resolved to treat myself. To my surprise, John and his sister's family appeared at the hotel the next day. John argued with the front desk, insisting he had the right to enter because he was family. However, I had already instructed the staff not to allow anyone in without my explicit permission. This establishment was highly professional. Initially considering ignoring them altogether, I reconsidered, not wanting to disrupt the facility's operations. Reluctantly, I agreed to meet them in the hotel lobby, a public space with a concierge nearby, ensuring I could seek assistance if necessary. When I asked what they wanted, John smiled and said, Anna, you're so mean. Why didn't you tell me about this place? Why did you keep it a secret? Yeah, why hide this from us? His sister chimed in with a similar smile. Seeing them together, they looked remarkably alike. not just in appearance but also in their conniving nature. We're not family anymore, so there's no obligation to inform you. Please leave. You're causing a disturbance, I replied firmly. We're still married, John insisted. No, we're not, I countered, informing him that I had filed for divorce at the county office on my way to the hotel yesterday. So we have no connection anymore. Why did you do it without telling me? John seemed genuinely surprised, despite having initiated the divorce proceedings himself. Don't worry. Divorced couples can remarry without waiting 6 months. You two can just get married again, I said calmly. Yes, exactly, his sister interjected, sharing some tidbit she'd heard somewhere, and John looked satisfied. No thanks, I said firmly, rising from my seat and striding back to my room, disregarding their attempts to follow me. The concierge intervened, preventing them from pursuing me further. I won't give up. I'll come here every day to show you how much I love you. You're so cool, John, his sister exclaimed, their theatrics unfolding behind me as I walked away, feeling thoroughly drained. I wasted no time in contacting my lawyer. The situation was escalating faster than I anticipated. I hadn't expected them to escalate things just a day after I left. They seemed determined to engage in futile efforts. John and his sister's family began appearing at the facility daily, waiting for me in the lobby. My lawyer swiftly obtained a restraining order, but then they pulled an audacious move. Anna deceived me into marriage. I'm demanding compensation, John asserted. I didn't know I couldn't have children, and if I had known, I wouldn't have married you. He insisted on compensation, threatening to accuse me of marriage fraud if I refused. I provided my lawyer with a specific recording. I proposed to Anna because I wanted to share my life with her. If having children was my priority, I would have chosen someone else. These were John's own words during his proposal to me, captured in the recording I had. John was livid, demanding to know why I had such a recording, but it was simply my cautious nature. In an uncertain world, I kept a recorder handy when I sensed potential issues. It was a habit that unexpectedly proved useful. I had trusted John and often listened to this recording alone, reminiscing about our early days together. I had never anticipated needing it for legal protection. Now, John claimed that after our marriage, I coerced him into quitting his job and assuming all household responsibilities, accusing me of emotional abuse and seeking compensation. He threatened to involve the police if I didn't comply. I presented another piece of evidence. I'll stay at home and take care of everything. I don't hate my job as a waiter, but wouldn't it be easier for you to work this way? You know I'm good at cooking. These were John's words, expressing his desire to be a stay-at-home husband, which I had recorded. John then asserted that the emotional distress caused by my secret recordings warranted compensation. He threatened to involve the police for illegal recording. However, there is no specific crime of illegal recording in such contexts. The legality typically hinges on how the recording is used, such as for causing harm, or if it involves illegal entry or damage to property during the recording process. Undeterred, John then demanded compensation for the divorce itself, despite being the one who initiated it without valid grounds, handing me completed divorce papers. Naturally, I had recorded that conversation as well. My lawyer clarified that, given the circumstances, it was more likely that John owed me compensation instead. Finally, in tears, John pleaded for a fair division of assets. I agreed to consider his requests, stipulating, I need you to vacate the condo. Once the assets are properly assessed, we will meet at the lawyer's office to discuss the division. They departed without causing a scene, allowing me to sell all the furnishings of the condo and list it for sale. As I had anticipated, due to the increasing property values, it sold for more than anticipated. Upon presenting the final figures, John and his family were jubilant. Clearly, the total assets amount to tens of millions, so I'm entitled to half of this, John asserted confidently. Not quite. These figures represent only the assets I acquired independently, I clarified. The lawyer handed John a document detailing his entitlements, and his face flushed red with anger. Why am I entitled to nothing? John demanded. The lawyer patiently explained. The majority of these assets were acquired before our marriage, which means John has no claim to them. As for the income earned during our marriage, John was entitled to half. But after accounting for living expenses, necessary costs, and the compensation I sought, his share amounted to a negative. Why should I pay compensation? John protested. The lawyer presented the evidence. John had been unfaithful. His affair was with a woman he met through an online game. John had misrepresented me to her, portraying me as older with a chronic illness and suggesting he would inherit all my assets if anything happened to me. He had also provided her with substantial financial support. The woman corroborated this, agreeing to testify on the condition that I wouldn't seek compensation from her. And you also said something like this. I played a recording of the girl's testimony. John told that girl about my condition, explaining that having a child could be life-threatening for me. He said that when the time came, he would cry and beg me to have his child, believing I would risk my life to do so. She testified that he laughed about it. Consider yourself lucky you're not facing legal consequences. Thanks to you, I've had some amusing dreams and enjoyed good food. Let's call it even, and I won't ask for more. John hung his head and accepted everything. And so, my brief marriage came to a messy end. I never bothered to find out what happened to John and his sister's family afterward, nor did I care. As long as they never crossed my path again, that was all that mattered. Pursuing it further would only prolong my misery. While the emotional toll was significant, I was fortunate to have ample resources and time to heal. I embarked on a world cruise aboard a luxurious liner. During the journey, I met people from diverse backgrounds, explored countless destinations, and savored unforgettable experiences. There were moments when my heart fluttered for a few individuals, but the memory of John held me back. Determined not to repeat past mistakes, I returned home with newfound resolve and began building a fresh start. For a while, I luxuriated in the resort hotel, but soon found myself yearning for more. At just 40 years old, I realized I was still young, a realization heightened by my experience living with a much younger John. During my year-long cruise, I encountered an inspiring woman in her 80s who remained active and open to new love, regardless of her age. Why should I let John's actions dictate my future? Love is meant to be enjoyed, and I refuse to let him tarnish that possibility. I resolved. As I contemplated this, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from a man I connected with on the cruise. He mentioned he would be visiting the U.S. soon and asked if I would join him for dinner. We had bonded during our travels, often exploring ports together with his high school-aged daughter. Recalling the warmth of our interactions, I couldn't help but envision what it might be like to have a family bond like theirs. With a flutter of excitement, I replied eagerly, agreeing to meet. From this midpoint in my life, I sensed a new beginning unfolding before me, a step forward filled with anticipation and hope.